Okay, we are about 2 after the hour, so we'll go ahead and get started with today's webinar. My name is Travis Creighton of the U.S. Department of Transportation's Volpe Center, and I'll be assisting our presenters with today's webinar. Before we begin, just a few housekeeping notes. Please note that today's webinar is being recorded. We will hold question and answers until after the presentation, but if you have questions during, please feel free to use the chat feature to put those questions there. We'll come back to them during the Q&A, or if you'd like to wait and use the raise your hand feature, we'd also be happy to call on you to ask your question of the presenters directly. And with that, I will pass it off to James Gavin, who is the Program and Policy Development Team Leader in FHWA's Office of Project Development and Environmental Review, to get us started. James?
Travis, I appreciate it very much. Good afternoon, everybody, or good morning, depending on the part of the country that you're joining us. Really excited to have so many people attending today. I think there is a lot of interest and a lot of excitement around this tool, and it really is reflective of the amount of people that we've had joining us and wanting to learn more. I think that there's a large degree of credit that goes around. We're very excited to roll this out. For those of you who are familiar with the old NEPA tool that FHWA had in place for close to, I think, a decade or perhaps more, you know, that was a good starting point. That was a good starting point, but it didn't get a lot of use. And we took lessons learned from that. We went back and sort of pulled the user base, or the potential user base of a collaboration and document sharing tool, reporting tool, and was able to take that information that we got from the potential user base, plug it into that old tool, and make some really significant modifications, both on the front end in terms of how it looks and how it's going to operate for the user, and on the back end in terms of how it shares information with various systems in ways that really increase, I think, efficiency and usability. And the result is, because it's such a departure from the old NEPA tool, we made the decision to rename this tool, and the result is IMPACT, the Interagency NEPA and Permitting Collaboration Tool. And for those of you who might have been attending TRB, they saw the official rollout of this tool in January of this year. And then we, as these things tend to happen, you know, no good deed goes unpunished, and we had a little hiccup, and that was that tool that was unveiled at TRB had a one federal decision template built into it. And then one federal decision went away. A new administration came in and revoked the executive order that put one federal decision in place. So it was back to the drawing table with something that had been worked on for some time. And we went back and reworked it, reworked the way it was presented and information was presented, took out references to one federal decision. And this is the relaunching. This is the relaunching of the IMPACT tool, now up to date with you know, the current state of practice in environmental review. And I think what you'll see today in the presentation, largely the credit goes to the folks who will be presenting, to Megan Cogburn and David Williams, the IT team on the back end, who really put in a lot of work and effort to, I think, create this, and we're getting a lot of good feedback, getting a lot of excitement out there across the country, getting a lot of people asking to sign up and test it, and that sort of information we'll get from people testing and using it we'll continue to go into updates, modifications, improvements. We have high hopes for the use of this going forward. And with that, I will turn it over to that team. Thank you again for being with us today. And I hope and I'm sure you'll like what you see. Thanks so much.
Thanks, James. And now we'll go to David Williams of FHWA's Office of Project Development and Environmental Review to go over today's agenda.
Yeah, so today we're going to give you a little bit of background on impact and its evolution over the last few years. Explain some key features and benefits. You're going to have a chance to kind of see a video that we put together, a marketing video, to kind of give you an overview. And then we're also going to do a live demo of the tool. Megan, my partner in crime, who's the other impact administrator, is going to lead that demo. And then we're going to have a little discussion from Sharon Love out in Washington State Division, and talk about her experience both with the old NEPA, the old version, and also with Impact, the more updated version of NEPA. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the resources that are available and some of the customized technical assistance we're able to provide you guys. And we're asking that you guys kind of hold questions till the end. Feel free to put questions in the chat pod, but we'll probably we'll respond to those questions towards the end of the presentation. And then, like I mentioned, Megan is my partner in crime. Also supporting the team is Travis from Volpe. Noel from the Resource Center, he'll be available. You'll probably hear from him either in this part of this presentation or as we start to develop technical assistance and outreach. He's with our Resource Center. And of course, many thanks to Sharon Love, who's been a major contributor to the update.
Great, thanks, Dave. And before we dive in too much into our presentation today, we did want to get a sense of who all is in the room and joining us for today's webinar. And so to get a sense of that, we put together just a short introductory poll that we would ask you to fill out. There is a link in the chat I just put there. If you'll click that, you can fill it out on your computer, or if you have a mobile device nearby and would like to scan the QR code on the slide here, that's another way to access this short poll. It's just an opportunity to see where you're joining us from, a little bit about your current practices to help us kind of inform how we might guide today's webinar. So if you'll just take a few moments to fill that out, then we'll walk through some of the results together to see who all is here, and then we'll resume with our presentation. I will leave this slide up just for another moment or two if folks want to make use of the QR code, or again, the link is also in the chat. I just added it again for those folks who are just joining us. That'll just help us get a sense of who all is here. I do see we're getting a couple of responses coming in, so I'll just wait until we have a couple more and then we'll take a look at those together. All right, great. I'm going to just switch our screens here. We can take a look at some of these results. Responses are still coming in, so we will definitely take a look at these as that number keeps rising. But just to take a look here at who all is joining us, we have a lot of folks from state DOTs around the country joining. That's our largest category here. A couple of federal folks, both from within and without US DOT. Great to have you joining us as well. Also good to see some folks on the consulting side joining us. A couple of state resource agency, local or MPO folks, and a few others joining us. So thanks everyone for being here today. We'll just scroll down here, take a quick look at our state breakdown, seeing a lot of variation here. So we're very excited to see that geographic diversity and reaching folks from all across the country. A lot of Washington State representation. I'm sure Sharon Love is excited to see that, and folks in her backyard able to join us today. Some folks from Wisconsin, Virginia, Tennessee has some good representation on the call today, Colorado as well, Florida, New Jersey. Really excited to see such a great geographic diversity of folks joining us on the webinar today. In terms of active transportation related EAs and EISs, It looks like a number of states have between 0 and 3, or at least that's what folks are seeing in their states. A slight group also seeing a bit more than that, 5 to 10, and a handful of states with maybe 10 plus active ones ongoing. In terms of current tools that folks are using for project tracking, let's take a look at some of the responses here. Seeing some SharePoint uses, some spreadsheets, Microsoft Project, making use of Office tools, some local database options as well. Seeing some folks using some GIS options, some story mapping and scheduling, some custom tools perhaps that folks are also taking advantage of. Looks like we have someone here who is an active eNEPA user, so excited to see that and be able to share more about the impact upgrade to that today. Some custom tools again, seeing some of that, a variety of charts, Excel spreadsheets, seeing a lot of good options here. So good to just have that sense of what current folks are using there. Let's also take a look at what folks are using for file sharing. Seeing again some SharePoint and OneDrive, some Microsoft tools there that folks are taking advantage of. I see a comment that this is something folks are struggling with, so we can definitely speak to that a little bit later in today's presentation about file sharing options, so we'll keep that in mind. Some custom tools I'm also seeing, Google Docs and Google Services, something that folks are using, ProjectWise, and some additional tools there. So good to know and see that. And as Dave mentioned, before we shift back to the presentation, we do also have a short video introducing Impact that we'd like to share with you all. So I'll play that now, and then we'll get back into our presentation.
The Federal Highway Administration is on the cutting edge of efforts to accelerate project delivery. To help save time and simplify documentation, the FHWA created the Interagency NEPA and Permitting Collaboration Tool, or IMPACT for short. This rebranded and improved version of eNEPA can help NEPA practitioners to efficiently manage the environmental review and permitting processes for all types of transportation projects, from simple CEs to more complex EAs and EISs. Housed behind FHWA's firewall, IMPACT provides a secure web-based platform. The tool can help strengthen interagency collaboration during the NEPA process by making it easier for project managers, environmental planners, and resource and regulatory agency staff to exchange documents and collect and share comments in real time. IMPACT centralizes the many elements of a NEPA review to help you seamlessly manage the decision-making process. Through its user-friendly interface, you can track project and permitting schedules and key milestones, send meeting invites, manage documents, and even track mitigation commitments. Its integration with FHWA's project reporting system, Popeye, means data can now be sent to the federal permitting dashboard. Users only have to enter information once, eliminating redundant data entry. These time-saving features can help you reduce the time it takes to complete environmental reviews and permit decisions in line with the new CEQ regulations implementing NEPA. If you're ready to make an impact with NEPA, visit our website for more information. There's never been a better time to make an impact.
And with that, I'll get us back to our presentation, and Dave, pass it back off to you.
Hey, thanks, Travis. So, in the Office of Project Development, we believe in environmental stewardship, innovative thinking, idea sharing, and striving to work efficiently and effectively. And in doing that, we spoke and heard from practitioners out in the field, both our division offices, consultants, DOTs, and the like. And they told us, hey, we need a tool that enhances our ability to collaborate and exchange information on complex NEPA documents and permits. And we need to be able to deliver these documents within, prescribed timeframes. So our first attempt at this was eNEPA. And as you heard James talk about just a little bit. And since then, we've improved upon it and developed an impact, again, the interagency permitting and collaboration tool. One, to make it easier to manage and organize many interagency reviews as required by NEPA. But it also serves as a centralized platform to manage development of environmental documents. And we wanted to make it web-based and free, which it is. Again, another tool to add to your toolbox as you're considering document sharing across with either your federal partners, your state partners, your consultants, and folks that are assisting you in the NEPA development process. So go on to the next slide, Travis. So again, as we briefly mentioned, this couldn't be possible without our technical work group. We created a technical work group both to help us identify what are the needs out in the field, but also to help test the functionality of the new tool. So we reached out to state DOTs, Washington and Georgia. We reached out to our Federal Highway Division offices. Nebraska and Washington had key roles in that. Also, our permitting agencies. Early on in the NEPA process, we developed a template for Army Corps and Coast Guard permits. So we asked them, invited them to help participate as we developed the tool as well. And then we also, OST, Office of the Secretary, and FTA, Federal Transit Administration, also were asked to assist. So with that, I'll turn it over to Megan to talk a little bit about the impact features and benefits.
Great, thanks, Dave. Good afternoon, everyone. As both James and David mentioned, impact includes a number of features that can help support a streamlined and transparent process for developing environmental documents. The tool can be used to facilitate interagency communication and collaboration, which can ultimately help shorten the project delivery timeline. As you heard, ENEPA, the former ENEPA, had several features that we retained and improved upon. And some of those retained features includes a lot of the key functions, which include a centralized location for document management and comment tracking. And it also allows for seamless sharing of large files through the tool. So you don't have to worry about files being too large to share over email or issues with FTP access with other agencies or contractors. This was a very attractive feature to our technical work group, as well as from what we heard in our previous webinar. So just for your information, the file size is 250 megs, so which is quite large. So again, this just helps with the seamless sharing of large files. Another retained function is that concurrent agency reviews. So you're able to send files and do reviews with agencies all at the same time and using impact. Another retained function is that it allows for schedule and milestone tracking that is easily shared across agencies and the project team. Impact has several new exciting features that improve upon the functionality of the tool and the ease of its use. So one of the features that we worked on in improving ENEPA into Impact is the improved user-friendly interface. For those who use the old ENEPA, you'll see here this screenshot, which provides a high-level snapshot of the project and also graphically displays information that correspond to the different tabs in Impact. This looks much better and much more user-friendly and more intuitive for users. And this is a very high-level overview in these slides, and I'll make sure to go through them in more detail in the live demonstration. So this landing page here shows, each section of the project landing page allows users to click on that topic area and drill down for more information. And folks have different learning styles or different way they process information. So we did try to make it so that there's multiple ways to access the information. This interface also allows users to easily access information in a more visually pleasing way. So this landing page here is what you see when you log on. And so if you get that question from your management that you have to look at real quick, you can pull up Impact and you can see, your project team members, the project timeline, the permits associated, and the environmental commitments associated. So if you get a request, asking, is the Army Corps or the Coast Guard, are they part of your project team? And you can just quickly glance here and get back to your management. So another feature is the permit application feature. The new permit tab allows users to track permit milestones that are consistent with the reporting requirements for the federal permitting dashboard. The permit tab also contains information on common permits needed for FHWA projects. This tab allows users to see what type of information is needed for each permit, the responsible agency, and links directly to that agency's website to fill out the permit needed. And so for our federal highway users, Impact also syncs to Popeye, which is FHWA's internal project tracking system, which also pushes to the federal permitting dashboard. Another feature is the mitigation commitment feature, and this is one that we are very excited about to debut. We've heard from a lot of state DOTs that they don't have a good way of tracking mitigation commitments, and this is definitely a risk area that Federal Highway wants to improve upon. So this feature of the tool allows you to track your mitigations and the type of category of the mitigation, who the responsible party is, the timing and phase of that commitment, and also provides information on the source document for that commitment. Again, this is something that we're very excited about and have heard a lot of positive feedback from divisions and state DOTs and other resource agencies. And as I mentioned briefly before, another key benefit of Impact is that it does sync information. Should you choose, there are privacy settings that you can manage, but if you do choose, Impact can transfer information from the tool directly to Popeye, which is Federal Highway's internal project tracking system, and that also syncs to the federal permitting dashboard. So this helps with reducing redundant data entry, and also, if a state DOT and their consultant team are the primary users in Impact, and they would like to have the Federal Highway Division Office as part of that project team, then the Federal Highway Division user can import the information to Popeye, and that feature is internal to Federal Highway only, but that will help the division not have to call the state DOT or the consultants asking the status of a project or what the latest project schedule is. So it's all supposed to help in be efficient in the environmental review process. So with that, I know this was a very quick high-level overview of the benefits. I am going to just do a brief live demonstration of the tool, and I will just have a disclaimer that this is a test project in here. So if anything looks out of whack in the environmental review process, just keep in mind that this is a test. Yeah. So can everyone? Oh, can you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, go ahead, Dave.
As Megan, starts to go through the demo, I just want everybody to know that, as she mentioned, who has access. There's only 2 people have access to all projects across within Impact, and that's she and I. Anyone wanting to gain access has to go through the project manager. So, and that project manager can be the state DOT, it can be the local agency lead, it could be a consultant. But that project manager determines who has access to your project. That's one thing that came across very strongly is privacy. But you should know that it is subject to FOIA. Just like all electronic documents are, it has to follow the rules of FOIA as well. And one last thing before Megan gets started. It's a great tool potentially to use to help develop your administrative record. You won't necessarily have everything you need in here for your administrative record, but it's a great start on developing your administrative record. So I'll turn it back over to you, Megan. Thanks for letting me jump in real quick.
Anytime, feel free to jump in at any point. Okay, so this is the initial landing page for Impact. You can see there's, your recently accessed projects, and as Dave mentioned, again, you only have access to the particular project you are working on. So you will not be able to see other users' projects, and you have to be assigned to it. And this dashboard kind of shows here, your upcoming meetings and milestones, and that will show for all, projects that you're working on. So I'm going to show you our test project. And again, this here shows you, just have some stats. There's 5 things on the to-do list, 2 upcoming milestones, and documents. So this information is here just for stats, for quick kind of questions if you get it from your management, or easy numbers that you can throw into reports. So I clicked on the test project, and this is the project landing page that the project workspace that I mentioned before. This kind of gives you a quick snapshot of the project where, and as I mentioned before, the different types of ways to access information. Up here, the screen that I'm scrolling my mouse on, there's different tabs associated with the tool, and these are the main functions of the tool, is these separate tabs. And this landing page just gives a snapshot of each of those tabs, and you can either click through here on each tab to access the information, or you can click this blue button here for more information. And so, for example, this project, it has the EIS timeline here, and there's a quick project description, your project team members, you have the date and your upcoming assignments here on the top right. And you can also see the permits that are associated with the project, and the progress, the status of those permits. And same with the environmental commitments. You can see 2 have not been initiated, 1 is in progress, and 1 commitment was rescinded. And here on this section, you're able to see recent documents that you've accessed, because again, you can upload your documents to Impact, and you can also assign different reviewers, and you can leave comments. So here is just a quick example of comments that you can leave on reviews of documents. And then this box here on the bottom left is the different project phases. And I do also want to preface by saying that even though this test project is an EIS, impact is customizable for all classes of actions. It's not just EAs and EISs. So we know that CEs are a large majority of the program. So there are customizable templates for CE projects. So for some states that don't do very many EAs or EISs, I do not want you to be scared away or think that there's no value for you.
And that's a good point, Megan. I mean, another point to make is now you don't have to use the entire tool. You can use portions of the tool as well. But we can get more into that as we get into the demo and the presentation.
Yep, that is right. So I'm gonna, as I mentioned before, how people have different ways of thinking. I am pretty linear, so I like to just go through the tabs here. Whereas Dave is more, he likes to click the more information button and drill down from there. But either way works, whatever works best for you. But I'm gonna go through the tabs here briefly. So I'm on the detail tab, and this is, your basic project information. You can assign different project managers, different status for just regular project team members. And then there's also a project manager, of course. There's general project information. You can add a project description, different status notes. There's also a section for project funding and project limits or different remarks. Again, the details tab is just the basic general project information that you will likely enter when you set up a project. And another feature here is you'll see on each tab that we go through that there is a button here for project workspace. So at any point in time you want to go back to that project workspace or dashboard, that will take you right back there. So next I am showing you the schedules tab. So this tab, there's again 2 different ways to review. You can click the arrow and go through each milestone by milestone, or you can zoom out, or I like to show this view just so you can kind of see on a timeline where the different milestones fall. But if I click notice of intent, that will take me to the timeline here. And then I can also click this icon to manage the timeline. And this timeline for EIS is consistent with both Popeye and the federal permitting dashboard. So this information is what can sync to Popeye and the dashboard, which is the timeline for your project and the milestone, and also the permit information can be transferred. So with that, the next tab is the documents tab. So this is where you can upload your project file. You can pin your, top documents that you want folks to see here in the left corner. And when you upload a document, there are assigned phases that are associated with the project, and there's corresponding actions to those phases. So, for example, when you set up a project, this is where you customize those different phases and actions, because we know that each state, has a different naming conventions and refer to things differently. So there is flexibility in naming the different phases and actions associated with environmental review. And again, the file size is 250 megs for each file. And so I'm just going to show you a quick example. In scoping, we've got a couple documents uploaded here, and you can download them, you can check it in and check it out. One feature that we currently do not have is concurrent reviews, similar to kind of like a live Google Doc. That we don't have that functionality at this time, but it is something that is on our list that we would like to do should funding become available. But as you can see here, though, you can upload your documents and you can leave comments under the review section, which I'll get to in the next tab. And so the next tab is the contacts for your project. So here is your address book, so to speak, for your project team. You can add folks, their name, organization title, their information, their involvement in the project. You can add your resource agencies. And again, it's whoever is part of the project team, that is up to the project manager in Impact, whomever that may be. It could be the state DOT, it could be consultant. That is something that is up to the users. There's a lot of flexibility there. And so once you do kind of fill out this contacts form, you can then assign reviews. You can send calendar and meeting requests to the folks on your project team. And you can go ahead, Dave.
So just real quick, so each person that becomes a member of your project team, or that you choose to become a member of your project team, will have to be registered in Impact. And there's a different type of registration for those that already have UPACS access. As you saw in the video, UPACS is our firewall that Impact is housed behind. But this is all explained how you register and all that good stuff in the quick start guide, which we'll go over later, as well as the user manual.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. The next tab is the calendar tab. So again, you can add different milestones. You can add, unlike the traditional project schedule tab, the calendar is really where you can add different meetings, your biweekly check-ins, your agency meetings, and all of these can be downloaded and sync to your Outlook as well. The next tab is the meetings tab. So again, once you have your project team members selected, you can set up different meetings, and it syncs to Outlook, and you can send reminders to your team members and send the meeting requests all in Impact, and you don't have to use Outlook either. So it's really what the project team wants to do, but this is a neat feature, being able to set up meetings within the tool itself. And so the next tab is actions. So I mentioned that when a project manager sets up a project, depending on the different class of action, there are different project phases. And again, these are customizable to whatever phase you want to call it, and corresponds to different phases along the project development timeline. So for example, pre-NOI activities, that is something that happens obviously before the notice of intent is issued, but we all know a lot of work gets started before that. So here there's different phase or different actions that are associated with that phase that you can upload different parts of that phase. So you can upload your project initiation letter, your public involvement plan, your purpose and need, the different concurrences. And here you'll see if there were documents assigned and reviewers are assigned, you can see the number here. So that can show you who, if you send a review, you can see if the person has opened it or if they've looked at it, which, can be a challenge sometimes on large project teams. Lots of emails and files being sent and not great tracking. So this does kind of keep track of that. And again, the actions and phases are customizable depending on your class of action. The next tab is the reviews. And so this is where, the way that the document manager is set up is that there are those project phases and then those corresponding actions to the phases. And so when you upload a document here in the document tab, you will assign it to certain actions. So we can see here under the under the scoping phase that there are certain documents here that are associated with that. And so I can assign reviewers to that document, and you can leave high-level reviews here in this comment feature. This comment function is intended to be kind of overall general comments. Your specific comments related to the document will likely be within that file itself. So you would still use, Word or leave comments in PDF, whatever way you choose, but you can leave high-level comments here, such as, I concur or I uploaded comments, just, that kind of day-to-day communication between project team members.
So if you're a project manager and you want to make sure, let's say Megan is a commenter in a document that I'm working on, or a NEPA document I'm working on, and I say, hey, Megan, when you finish your comments, could you just let me know you finished them? So she gets enter that in here. Mm-hmm. And then if you go to the project workspace real quick, Megan.
Yeah.
And then scroll down near the bottom once it will have a running tally. So it'll pop up there on my workspace as project manager saying, okay, I've reviewed it. Hey, it's in. And it will actually give me a timestamp or a date stamp when she made that, when she did that review or sent that comment.
Yeah. Thanks, Dave. And again, another thing I wanted to point out is the comment function in the review tab. Again, it is general, but another thing that we would like to improve upon is being able to export those comments should you need it for your project files or your administrative record. So the next tab is the environmental commitments tab. So this, again, is a table. It has the different mitigation categories, what the impact is, the commitment, what the status of that commitment is, who the responsible organization is, and the timing of when that commitment is supposed to be carried out. And then there's also a spot for the source document, so you can see, in the FEIS Chapter 3, Section 12, that's where this commitment is outlined. And you can add comments to this here should you need to. That was a feature the technical working group requested. And you can also, unfortunately, you can't delete the commitment. So if something changed, or you can rescind the comment, which is what this strikeout is. And one key feature too is that we are able to export this table to Excel so that you can include it in your project documents or your project file, or if you need to, do a quick and easy export, that feature is already built in. So this is, again, one that we're really excited about and see a lot of utility in, because a lot of state DOTs have said that they don't have a good way of tracking. And I will say, as Dave mentioned before, you don't have to use every tab here in Impact. You can do it piecemeal. You could size it for however you see fit, but the commitments tracking is useful, particularly with Section 106 tracking as well.
One quick comment that we get is, how long do documents stay in Impact? And as you see here, environmental commitments can stretch over a long period of time. So once a project is in Impact, it's in here unless we do away with the tool itself. So it's here, and it's here for good. Now, if you need to delete a project, that requires you to contact either Megan or I to do that. Let's say you figured, okay, we initiated a project, but we're no longer going to go forward with it, nor do we want to keep the documentation, or we're going to print out documents and save them somewhere else temporarily. Then you could reach out to us if you wanted to delete the project out of Impact.
Yeah, that's correct. And we made it that way for control purposes, so that someone doesn't accidentally delete their project. So that is a control function. So then last tab is the last and the newest tab is the permits tab. So here there is a list of the common permits for federal highway projects and other surface transportation projects as well. We have information on what is required to fill out those permits and the format of those permits, so that you can know what information you need ahead of time. And then it will take you directly to the particular agency's website to fill out the permit directly. But of course, once you fill out the permit, you can upload it in Impact for your records in the document manager as well. And you can share it among the project team members as well.
Yeah, one quick note too is, a common question we get is, does everybody have access to all my documents? Like, can I assign specific team members to specific documents? And the answer to that question is yes. You can identify specific, let's say you have a permit, or let's say you have a Section 106 technical report you're developing, and you only want to share it between you and SHPO until it goes final, or you, SHPO, and maybe one or two of your other team members. And then once it goes final, you'll grant your whole team access. You can restrict the reviewers on that document.
Great point, Dave. So here in the permits tab, in addition to the common permits, there is also the permits timeline, and these milestones associated with permits is consistent with the federal permitting dashboard and also Popeye. So all of these milestones and the start date, completion date, all of that is consistent. So this is another section where a Federal Highway Division user can import information from Impact to Popeye should they be granted access to that project team. But again, you don't have to have a Federal Highway Division user as part of your team, but that's just one benefit that we do have. And so this screen shows a table of the different permits that are required, who the responsible agencies is, the status, and it also allows you to upload contact information, which is consistent with the dashboard. So I know that was a very quick, high-level overview of Impact. I'm going to turn it back to Dave, who is going to tell you a little bit about how to actually access the tool.
Yeah, so you can access the tool using this website that you see here on this slide. Also, you can access it as well as the supporting resources through FHWA's Environmental Toolkit on the last bullet here. And I think most everybody's kind of familiar with our toolkit. So if you go to the toolkit, you'll find, soon to find, a user handbook, or what we call the user guide. It's currently in our public affairs office being reviewed. Hopefully within the next couple of weeks, we'll have that posted on the website. Now that user guide gives you a step-by-step process for uploading documents, for determining, assigning reviewers, and it has screenshots to assist you with that process. So you have the narrative as well as a screenshot of what you should be seeing. We also have the Quick Start Guide. Now, the Quick Start Guide is a scaled-down version of the user guide. The Quick Start Guide are quick tips for those things that you're going to consistently do. So you don't want to have to necessarily pull out the user guide and go thumb through that or whatnot. But it's a 3-page guide that how do I register? So you can copy that link of the Quick Start Guide, send it to either your consultant or to someone you want to sign up, and it has your registration instructions. Also, it has things like if I forget my password, how do I reset my password? But it also gets into some of those items like environmental commitments and document uploads and document manager stuff. But again, it's 3 pages, most commonly used elements of the tool and whatnot. So in addition, we're developing training. So YouTube videos right now to help users. So everybody has different learning styles. So some folks like to use YouTube videos. You could have YouTube up on half your screen with the tool on the other half as you're going through learning how to use that aspect of the tool. So over time, we're hoping to have YouTube videos on the most commonly used aspects. And it's going to take some time, but you'll be able to access those YouTube videos. We also are offering, developing over time, a community of practice. So as users are getting up and using it, Impact, just like most other tools, are going to undergo constant development. As people are using it, they figure out, hey, I want this new function, or I want that new function, but we can't do it overnight. So sometimes users develop workarounds. And so we're developing that community of practice so that users can talk to each other about, hey, how did you do this? How did you do that? Well, here's what I did. In addition, we're offering customized or one-on-one technical assistance. It can range from providing assistance to the PM, project manager, to help them get set up. Okay, I'm thinking about using it. Here's how I want my project management, how I want my project team to work. What's the best fit? Should we start out with a bite size? Maybe just look at the purpose and needs statement and get them sharing that. Should I establish an internal impact expert so that I can work internally with them before coming to you guys, because they're going to be more accessible? But we can answer questions like that and help you think through some of those elements. But again, you can find all this stuff on the environmental toolkit, and then you'll see our contact information later on in the presentation, Megan and my contact information. And I'm not going to let Noel get away free. So Noel is he's from the Federal Highway Resource Center, and he's also is part of our team, a fairly new addition to our team, and very technically savvy. So so he will also be one that will be available to you to assist with your needs. So with that, I think I turn it over to Sharon to kind of share with you her experiences, both with regards to eNEPA and impact.
Thanks, David. And just to remind everyone, we are tracking all of your questions in the chat pod, and as soon as I finish, we will get into answering them. My name's Sharon Love, and I work in the Washington Division Office of Federal Highway. A few WashDOT folks and I participated in the original eNEPA beta test, and one of those WashDOT colleagues, Melanie Vance, and I were beta testers for both the eNEPA and later the impact systems. And so I was asked to share our experiences with you today. Next slide. Yeah. As you know, impact is brand new, so my project experiences with eNEPA, which was the first version, so some of the things I'll talk about have since been fixed. We had an EA with the National Park Service, Olympic National Park, which was being co-written by WashDOT and the park. And the large file sharing and version control were a big concern as we started out, so I suggested that we try the eNEPA system. The system, like impact, had a lot of functions, but we were able to just use the parts we needed, as has been mentioned before. This particular project didn't involve a lot of other agencies, and we didn't really need some of the coordination tools. It was nice to be able to just use what we needed and just transfer those large files back and forth. At the same time, we had an EIS kicking off, and so we did go through the process to actually set that project up in eNEPA, but there were some funding issues and delays, and we didn't end up really using the system for that project, but I was able to see kind of how we did the setup and, you know, getting access for all the agencies and experimenting with the system. And at the time, I think everyone had to go through UPAC, so now there's a better way. Next slide, please. So our experience with the beta test on impact, one thing we really liked was the ability to tailor the process steps in the impact templates to match our process and terminology in Washington State. WashDOT and a consultant they had working for them worked on an EIS template back in the eNEPA days, and a lot of the work they did got incorporated into impact. One thing that our beta test team really advocated for was including CE projects. We occasionally have a CE that requires a lot of technical study, and we wanted the ability to use the collaboration and review tracking tools in impact for some of our larger CEs, and they did incorporate that, as you've heard. One of the challenges we found was getting all parties access into UPACs, but once their organizations were included in the system, that got easier. And once in the system, they were able to log in reliably. And again, a lot of that has been updated. I was frankly amazed at the improvement between eNEPA and impact. It was clear the team really listened to and understood the beta testers. Pretty much everything we asked for was included. I think they've built a really great tool, and I look forward to using it on future projects. Next slide. So just my perspective on why I think you should try impact. Sharing large files is a continual challenge. Large-scale NEPA projects involve many agencies and need to cross many firewalls to share information electronically. Longer-term projects inevitably involve staff turnover, so having the history of a process all in one place should really help with getting new people up to speed. Finally, as David mentioned, while impact won't create your administrative record, it's going to make it a little easier to find those electronic documents that may belong in the record based on the rules around each document. And finally, I wanted to share a few thoughts about what I see in the future. I hope that my state will expand their use of the tools in impact. Many of our agencies have tools like MS Teams that we use for internal collaboration, but using them across agencies can be challenging. Impact offers a lot of the same functions and allows us to include anyone we need to have at the table, regardless of the security settings at their agency's networks. I believe our local agency projects will really benefit from use of this tool. Many of them rarely do large NEPA documents, and impact will help guide them through the process and allow their state and federal DOT partners and their consultants to work with them seamlessly. And lastly, permit tracking for the federal permitting dashboard is a complicated process right now and will be greatly streamlined with the integration of impact and POPI and the dashboard. Anytime I don't have to type the same date twice, I am appreciative. So with that, David and Megan are now ready to take your questions, and thank you very much.
Thanks, Sharon. And as Sharon mentioned, we have been tracking your questions in the chat, so we'll start going through those now with Dave and Megan. If you have additional questions, please feel free to continue to utilize the chat to put them there, or if you'd like to ask your question directly, please feel free to raise your hand and we'd be happy to unmute you and let you ask it directly. So Dave and Megan, a couple of questions we're seeing in the chat here. One early one that came up was about NEPA assignment states and using impact. Is there a need for NEPA assignment states to enter their project information in impact since FHWA does not review their projects and they're already using the federal permitting dashboard?
Yeah, and I do want to clarify that Federal Highway, yes, we are the ones who created the tool and have housed the tool, but we don't review what is in the projects unless we are assigned to a project team. But the purpose is not for Federal Highway review or to check in on your projects. It's really meant to be a project collaboration tool. So to that end, yes, NEPA assignment states. Certainly there is utility and function for those states to collaborate with their project team members, including the consultants and the different resource agencies. Federal Highway does not have to be part of it and will not have access to your project unless you invite them. David and I have system admin rights, but that is purely for technical assistance. We are not we're not being nosy looking at folks' projects. So we're not doing oversight, if you will. So yes, yeah. there is utility for NEPA assignment states, the same as you would collaborate on any project, and it's not required of anyone to use it. It's just another tool in the toolbox.
Great. There's also a question here a bit about the connectivity to Popeye. Do impact users have control on what information is pushed forward and when it goes into Popeye?
Yeah, so the project manager, there's different settings. And so what links impact to Popeye is the state project ID number. So if a PM does not want their information to be shared with impact, they can toggle off that button. But the push is manual in Popeye. So like impact isn't constantly feeding information to Popeye. When a division user is in Popeye, they pull the information from impact. So it's not a two-way data exchange, and that again, that's only if they are granted access to it. It's not an automatic data transfer. It's a pull mechanism in Popeye.
Yeah, so as Megan said, there's a switch within impact where you identify whether you want to share that information or not, and then if that switch is thrown, then information can be shared. But there is a validation that does occur because sometimes things change and there may be conflicts. So there is before information goes from impact to Popeye to the dashboard, there's a validation that occurs within the impact database. So there's a message that would go back and say, hey, there's a conflict here, or this doesn't make sense, or there's a message that's sent to the PM.
Great. Another question we have, can the workflow be changed once the project is underway?
So I think that is related to the project phases and actions. So unfortunately, we are limited in the flexibility. We are flexible in that you can customize the different templates and actions and phases when you're setting up the project, but once you're midway, you are locked in to those phases. However, if you are, working in a project and you have it set up as a EA or an EIS and it ends up getting downscoped, you don't need to change anything in impact. Those features are still available, and there's no need to kind of go back, since it's really just a way to kind of organize your project information.
And to add on what Megan said, when you get into impact, you can select a template that you can use. We have some existing standardized templates, but you can also establish a customized template. And then if you set up a template, if you decide to diverge or move away from that template, then you run into some small issues. Now you can rename phases and you can rename actions once that template is set up, but to add things to that template will be difficult to do. Again, so you want to have a good idea of what your actions and phases are going to look like, how many you're going to have as before you get started. Now renaming them, that's easier to do, but to change a complete template, that's more difficult. Now, once, let's say you have a standard template that you use for your agency, you can set that up in Impact and you can share that with other PMs so PMs don't have to create it from scratch.
Yeah, and I see Susan's comment in the chat pod just now about adding that for future functionalities, and that definitely is on the top of our list. We have a growing wish list for short-term and long-term improvements for the tool. So we do recognize that.
Great. Another question we got was just about the best or recommended browsers for using Impact. Megan, you showed us an Internet Explorer. What other browsers are good for Impact?
Yes, so I know I'm a dinosaur and still like to use Internet Explorer, but I know it is at, they're phasing that out. So you can, and it is recommended to use Chrome or Firefox, and it even works in Edge. We haven't had any browser compatibility issues as of now, at least that we're aware of. So yeah, Chrome, I think our developers would prefer folks to use Chrome, but it does work in Firefox and Edge.
Great. And we had a few questions about logging in and registration. One question was if folks already have eNEPA credentials, do those already work in Impact?
Yeah, they should. Again, it depends on how long when's the last time you logged in. So you may be either soft locked or hard locked. Soft lock, if you haven't logged in a long time, you may be soft locked. So that's pretty easy for Megan or I to do. But if you're hard locked, then we kind of have to go that extra step to contact our technical support. And if you forgot your password, there is a process for resetting your password in Impact. But yes, if you already set up an Impact in eNEPA, you're automatically geared up for Impact, and if you registered an Impact a while ago, you should still be registered.
Yeah, and let us know if you do have any problems.
Great. I think that covers our registration and login questions. There were a few questions here during the demo, Megan, about some specific features. One was about the options available for involvement level. I think this was on one of the tabs that you were showing, and there might have been a drop down there.
Yeah, so that involvement level is, I think it was interested and then participating and cooperating. So, based on the agency status or if you're just kind of a regular project team member.
Great. And then on the commitments tab, do those need to be manually typed in to Impact?
Yes, they do. Yes, a user would input that.
That's one thing that Sharon has brought up to us. Hey, it would be great if I can transfer information electronically, maybe from a Excel spreadsheet or into impact, so I don't have to type all this stuff in. So that's something that's on our list to look into.
Great. And speaking of features, you know, I know one theme is that you don't have to use all of impact. You can use certain features of it. There was a question here about, you know, if you only want to utilize certain tabs and features, is there a way to hide or, you know, make certain parts of impact invisible to users just to avoid, you know, entering information in those areas?
Yeah, unfortunately, at this point in time, we do not have that functionality, but that is a great comment, and we'll definitely add that to our list of features to consider in the future.
Great. We had a question here about timeline in impact, and I think, Dave, you already covered this, that once a project is in impact, it stays in impact. I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
One question that came up in the last external webinar was, can we put our coordination plan or schedule in impact? And you can put your coordination plan in impact, and you can, big picture wise, put your coordination schedule in there, but it won't. Megan, you might be the better person to talk to the scheduling aspect.
Yeah, so the schedule there, you know, there's the schedule that's related to, you know, the project milestones, and that is, you know, set. But your calendar function will allow you to kind of put those internal kind of project reminders or milestones internally in impact, but not. It's not on the schedule tab.
This is Sharon. I think the question had a little more to do with how long things might last, like post NEPA. Does it? Oh. You addressed that earlier, but you know, if they had a commitment that lasted 10 years or something, would the project stay?
Yeah, they can always access the project once it's in impact. It's there unless for some reason the tool went away. But it always, that project would always be there, or unless someone asked us to delete the PM.
Another question we got was related to permits. Is there a way to add state permits?
Yeah, let me share my screen briefly, and I can, do you see it?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, so here, this is the manage or add new permit or milestone. So we have the list of permits, and this is consistent with what the dashboard, federal permitting dashboard has. And so there is the option to do, you know, state, local, or other non-federal permits here, and then you just enter the information and the different target dates associated with those milestones. So yes, there is that feature.
Megan, can I ask, this is Sharon again. So if you add it here, will it go to the dashboard?
If you have that functionality, because yes, there are, you know, projects that have state permits that are associated with it, and if you do have an EA or EIS, you are required to have that on the dashboard. So you are able to, should you, you know, approve of that data transfer connection.
Great. Another question we had, Dave, I know you mentioned earlier that documents in impact are subject to FOIA. There was a comment that cultural resource documents might contain sensitive information. Are they also subject to FOIA if they're in impact?
Again, you would follow the same FOIA rules. So if a document was requested, or you had a FOIA request to come in, and that was exempt by FOIA rules, then that information could be redacted, I'm sorry, from that document.
Yeah, and if it's, you know, a deliberative product, then you don't have to give that up. But again, that is for the federal FOIA. We know that state different. each state has different state rules regarding their process.
We also had a question about, do you have a sense of how many state DOTs are currently using Impact? And a follow-up to that, is there any additional outreach plan to state DOTs to help them access and maybe consider using Impact into their unique processes?
So we have a handful of states that are users of Impact, but we have spent the last year and a half or so revamping eNEPA into Impact. So during that time, the number of active users has gone down, but that is the point of this webinar, is to get the word out about Impact, and we definitely would like to, or Dave and I are available to do further training or targeted outreach to particular state DOTs if they are interested. So this is the first step in getting the word out. So definitely please tell your your project teams, your partners about Impact, and we are happy to give any demonstration or provide any technical assistance needed.
And Megan, you might want to talk about some of the requests we've already gotten in from, New York, for example?
Yeah, after our last one, external webinar last week, we got interest from NISDOT, Nebraska, Georgia, Washington State. There are definitely a lot of interest so far.
Yeah.
Great. Another question we got, could someone register just to test Impact if they wanted to, or do they need to have a specific project?
Yeah, so there's you can register for Impact, and there is a test dummy project that you can play around with just to kind of get your feet wet and see if it's something that you would like to use.
Great. We had a couple of questions here that were related. Is there process structure flexibility for an SEIS, either to continue a current NEPA project post ROD or as a new project and follow the EIS process?
Yeah, so we don't currently have, a separate SEIS template, but you can certainly continue on if you have a project that was created as an EIS. You can continue on the SDIS aspect of it, or SEIS aspect of it, but that is something I think we'll take into consideration is potentially having a supplemental tab or feature functionality, but you can certainly still use the tool and regardless of if it's a supplemental or not.
And Megan, this is Sharon. I think you could just use the EIS template and leave scoping blank. I mean, there wouldn't be or even remove it from the template.
Yeah, and then you can identify in your comment field on your project description that this is a supplemental as well.
And a similar question that also came through in the chat, could you use Impact to accommodate or manage subsequent reevaluations of a NEPA effort?
Yeah, what I just responded with about the supplemental would apply to a reevaluation as well.
So one thing you could do, again, thinking outside the box, you could add a phase to your template that is related to reevaluations, and then you can share that reevaluation document, use all the functionality of Impact and whatnot. So, but again, if that would have to be set up initially, because once you set up your template, you're kind of locked in. But so you might want to set up, a reevaluation as part of your template, and then if you never use it, but it's there if you need it.
David, this is Sharon again. Could you also just do the reevaluation, set it up as a new project?
You could. That's the cleanest way to do it. Again, workarounds are good things. One thing that I've learned, I'm sorry, Travis, one thing that I've learned as we started to develop the tool, anyone, and Sharon's, more experienced with this than I am, but when we started developing eNEPA and developing impact, you got to set up on a line of logic. Now, again, like Megan mentioned, no one person thinks the same way or have the same line of logic. So what we've tried to do is create something that's consistent with Popeye, consistent with the dashboard, and allows for customization and allows for people to access information differently. But at the same time, we realize, just like when you get a new cell phone, an upgraded version of your cell phone, there's a switch you have to throw in your head. Oh my God, what happened to this? How do I do this now? And the same thing here. There's a give and take. Well, we're trying to come your way to give users what they need, but at the same time, there's only so much we can do. Again, like that cell phone example. Sorry, Travis, did you have another question?
Yeah, there's a couple more questions I was just going to get to, Dave, but that was a really great way to think about it, so I appreciated that. And we only have about 8 or so minutes left for questions. So what I did want to do before we go over our remaining questions that we have is just share that we do have an exit poll that we would like you all to fill out. This is an opportunity to give us feedback on today's webinar. Let us know how it went from your perspective and share that feedback with us. It's also an opportunity to let us know if you have a technical assistance need or you would like to request training or additional assistance. This is the way to let us know. So I've put the link to that form in the chat. Please click it, give us that feedback, let us know if you need technical assistance, or again, if you'd like to scan the QR code, if you have a mobile device nearby, please feel free to do that on the slide here, but we would really appreciate you filling out that exit poll. So I did just want to get that on folks' radar, but we do have just a handful of questions left here in the chat, so we'll just keep going through these while folks are filling out that exit poll. There was a question, is there any public comment component of impact?
No, this is, there's no public component at this time. This is solely for collaboration among the, developers of the environmental document itself. But you certainly can, upload the public comments and whatnot in the tool, but the public will not, it's not a tool meant to, allow for public comment or of that nature.
An additional question in terms of just features, is there a way to transfer documents and data to a different system, to manage it elsewhere or at Project In to have an archive of all of the files?
Yeah, as you saw when Megan was going through the demo, you can download your documents. So once, so they're not in here and locked in here. So if you need to download your document and share it through some other avenue, you can do that. So if you have an administrative record you're keeping in your own system and you would download this document for that, you can do that.
Yeah, and in terms of the other part of the question, right now, as of today, it is set up to transfer to Popeye, but we do have kind of the coding, and I am not a technical IT person, but from my understanding, the coding can be, used should there be another kind of system similar to Popeye that other agencies want to use. And so that is part of our long-term goal, is to be able to have that functionality, with different agencies, such as the Army Corps or whomever wants to use it. I know FRA has a internal project tracking system similar as well. So our eventual goal is to have this go beyond just FHWA and surface transportation projects. In the future, it would be great if perhaps FIPSI hosted it, and so that all the federal agencies could use it and sync to their internal project tracking systems.
Now, one thing to note, and it came up yesterday, is that, different agencies have different firewalls and allow different access to external systems. So one thing you're going to need to know on your side is, will your system allow you access or to share information with an external system? This is something, I think that we ran into this with Shelly Sugarman. Shelly's with I can't remember, is she with the Coast Guard?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think she might actually be on the call.
Okay. We had to develop a workaround for her as part of the technical work group because of the constraints on her system. But that's one thing you'll need to do on your end, is figure out what the constraints on your systems are.
We also had some questions here about some of the schedule features. Is it possible to create your own schedule with interim steps and other customizations you might want to do in Impact?
So yeah, that goes to the question I already answered about, the schedule tab is meant for your project milestones is what the dashboard requires, their reporting requirements, but the internal calendar function in Impact is where you could set up, your internal team deadlines and things like that.
Hey, Travis, we have about 3 minutes. Could we advance to the next slide so if folks wanted our contact information, they'll have it? There we go. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yep, happy to pull that up here. And we have just a handful of questions left. One, are there any reports that are available in Impact that you could export?
Good question. Good question. So, as you saw, we have an Excel spreadsheet you can print environmental commitments with, and we're in the process. That's one of our high priority items. As soon as we got our new IT team on board, we're looking at reports that we're able to develop based on information that's in Impact. So one report is looking at not just environmental commitments, which we already have, but also comments that are received on the documents. But we're also looking at reports in terms of like something that looks similar to the workspace. It's a short order kind of executive summary of sorts. So.
And just with our last 2 minutes here, 2 quick questions. One, if a state DOT has an internal project tracking database, is there maybe a way for Impact to talk to that system?
Yeah, unfortunately, at this point in time, right now, the coding is for Popeye, but that functionality, should we have funding for that, that is something that we could do in the future. But as of now, no, it is only Popeye, but it is on our list of improvements.
And with our last minute, the last question we got in the chat, can Impact be used to track costs associated with the development of EAs and EISs?
Yes. Yes, you can.
All right, great. Those are all of the questions that we had. So with our last minute here, Dave or Megan, any parting thoughts?
I just wanted to thank everyone for their time. We know this is very quick overview, so if you do have any further questions, Dave and I are always available. And we look forward to working with you, and please get the word out to your partners. We want it to be as usable as possible, and so we also do request your honest feedback. If there are things that are barriers for you not using it, we would like to know that too. Or if there are features that you are excited to use, that is also helpful information to know. So please do take that exit poll that Travis had, or you've got our contact information here on the screen for any future requests.
Great. Thanks, everyone. It's 3:30 Eastern time, and that concludes our webinar. Thanks again for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.
Hey, thanks a lot.